Hey everybody, I'm recording outside because my brother's got company and they're loud and you know, he was playing video games and all, and so I'm going to be doing this out here. So hopefully I can either post this tonight or tomorrow, being Friday. But this is what I was talking about, doing a group that's originally from here. Um, oh, let's get over so I can be in the middle. Um, So I want to do a thing about um, Leonard Skynyrd. Um, More like a tribute. I don't know if I want to call it a tribute video, but my uncle, who knows some of the family in the band, and worked with them back in the early days when they were just starting. Um, he had I was How I found this was I was going through stuff of his 2 years ago and a year ago, organizing stuff, helping him pack up stuff so it won't be this whole massive stuff. He had a heart attack um, January of 2022, so 2 years ago, and his wife had a stroke like 2 or 3 years prior from that, and she had to end up having a AFib surgery right around the time he had to go to the hospital. So they're both, kind of having it health wise. Um, I've done, a video talking about them and their videos of pictures of things that we've done while I was up there. Me and my mom. This is my mom's brother. I probably could do a whole video of my uncle, the stuff he used to be into, the stuff he's done. Um, just he was really into the whole music thing. I think he gets that from my great grandmother. She was a really talented pianist, and she could do ragtime really good. Up before she died, my aunt was good with the piano. Her son, my cousin, played jazz really good. He played the saxophone. Uh, there's a lot of talented people music wise. So I think that he used to play at the comic book club on he used to do drums, and that's how he got to meet a lot of the bands like 38 Special, Leonard Skynyrd, stuff like that, because they would play at a lot of those places too. He met them, I think, through the comic book club. I know 38 Special, I think, was from there. Through there, if I'm not bad or wrong. I know he was telling me a lot of stories about different bands and the bands he used to play with. His band was called the Mailboxes, or Mailbox, something like that. Um, I don't think I could ever get him to do a video. Maybe one day. I mean, he'll talk to you individually here and there, with some interesting stories if you know him and you get to know him well. I know he's not always the easiest person to get along with. He's a lot like my peepaw, his dad, my mom's dad. So they're kind of like, but I know with his health issues, it didn't help. So like, I had to call my mom and be like, "Mom, you need to come get your brother. He's acting up." I mean, but we had good times too when I went up there to help him. He wasn't as bad last time we went to see him, which was in October of 2023. So I had to deal with him roughly 5-6 months out of the whole year, maybe longer. Because that it was up there for twice, for at least a month and a half. First 2 times I was up there 3 times, and the second time was for 2 weeks. I want to say 10 to 14 days. And that was with my mom. So, anyways, before this gets too long, I just want to show you. This was actually from the hospital that they were at. Most of them were at. It's called a South. They have a monthly newsletter. The hospital does. I don't know if they still do it. This was back in November of 1977 when this newsletter came out. Came out. It's called the Westerer, excuse me. It's from the Southwest Mississippi Regional Medical Center in Mcomb, Mississippi. This is what it looks like. So it's the whole month was dedicated to the more or less the people who were involved with helping this group out in that emergency situation. All the doctors, the nurses, down to the administrators, the pharmacists, the suppliers, the medical suppliers. Just it took a lot of people, and so I want to read the whole thing. It is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. About 7 pages long. Well, there's 8 pages, but one's got a whole picture of the group. Those 9 band members is this whole thing right here. I don't know if anybody can see it. On the old back, it has something about my uncle, who was one of the people that end up showing up because of Lacey Vincent, Ronnie Vincent's father had called him. And we'll get more of that on the last page. So that will be the last thing I talk about. So I'm sorry if this is, a long video. I want to take pictures or, well, let me see. I can stop this right now and I can go through it and show everything that's in it that I'm about to read. So I'd love to read it to y'all. This is something my uncle said I can grab one of them or a couple of them if I wanted. I think I did. I grabbed like 3 or 4. I just wanted to keep one for myself, one for like my mom, my brother. I figured I'd go ahead and take him before anything happens, because he will be 75 in July, and he does have heart issues and a lot of other stuff going on. And sad that he's crippled, but he's embarrassed by it. I'm like, why you gotta be embarrassed by it? I'm like, things happen. You are getting older. Things happen. Better be crippled than not alive at your age. But I mean, my mom had this whole discussion like last night about him, because there's certain places he don't want to go because I guess those people in certain areas, and he just embarrassed for them to see him like it is. And they're like, who cares? It is what it is. They don't care about your disability or issues right now. I mean, they care about you, but they're looking past how you look. They know you for years. So anyways, I'm gonna stop right here. I'm gonna pause it, flip through this so y'all can see pictures of the whole letter thing, newsletter, and I will come back and read the thing to y'all. So okay, so this is what it looks like, the newsletter up front, and it shows that. Please excuse the mess in the back. We've been going through stuff to have a yard sale, and we do feed our neighbors outside cats that comes over. Yeah, so sad he don't take care of his own cats. The neighbor across the street, he's not directly across from us, but the one next to him. I'm not gonna call his name out, so. And that's my uncle back in the day. Still. So anyways, that's what we'll cover. Now this is so crazy. Like when I shared the first part, just how this had to been God, because how this stuff was orchestrated, like down from them preparing for this kind of issue, like 3 years prior. I say 3 years prior, but the spring of 1974, and this took place in October of 1977, the actual crash. So I'm going to share the first part as comments from the administrator, and it's going to be on page 2, and then I'll come back, rewind on the first page, and talk about the Southwest Experience Disaster by Debbie Broomfield, because it's both of these articles start on the front page and goes on page 2. So here we go. Comments from the administrator. The spring of 1974, a letter was written to the National Guard requesting their assistance in a mock disaster drill for hospital personnel. In reviewing the letter, it stated that we wanted a mock air crash on Delaware Avenue extension with 30 casualties. Many of you will remember that the National Guard acted as casualties and did an excellent job with makeup and other devices to make the disaster real. Little did we know that we would all be called upon for a real airplane crash. Everyone did an outstanding job, and this is as it should be because we are trained for this type of disaster. However, the one thing that stood out above all else was the quiet, efficient, and professional way that everybody went about doing his job. The kindness shown to each other and to the visitors, and the willingness of everyone to be of service. We could mention so many people's names, but only one word should be used, and that word is teamwork. I wanted to can't speak. I'm sorry. I want you to know that many of the members of the disaster victims' families and friends and the patients have made a special effort to tell us how kind and efficient everyone was. The television and radio stations also have written letters and called to say thank you. The cooperation and kindness shown to them. This hospital has now had 2 major disasters, and you as a team have proven yourselves. You can be confident in that should our community be unfortunate to again experience a disaster, we will be ready. Okay. On November 8th and November 9th, we will be surveyed for accreditation. I can't even say it. It's ACCREDITATION. Since the beginning, we have always fared well under the close scrutiny of the Joint Commission of Accreditation. You will all get credit for the good jobs you have been doing. So let's make the surveyors, who are William R. Dalziel, it's DALZIEL, MD, Foster G. Ramsey's administrator, and James L. Catney, RN. We received good news today that our outpatient benefits have been increased from $50 to $200, which does not seem much, per year. And at the present time, there will be no increase in the Blue Cross premiums. Our utilization or use of the Blue Cross plan has dropped this year. We were able to get more benefits at no increase in cost to us. You will remember this outpatient benefit covers diagnostic work such as laboratory and x-rays. Each procedure, however, is limited in the amount Blue Cross will pay. The word of no increase was good news indeed during these days of inflation. Keep up the good work. It's funny they have talking about inflation back then. Okay, so that was the start of it. So apparently they had another disaster, I guess, after this, because by reading what this was other people were saying. It was pretty much, I think, the first disaster. So I'm going to read The Southwest Experience Disaster by Debbie Bromfield. On the evening of October 20th, Southwest Regional experienced a real disaster. A twin-engine airplane crashed approximately 12 miles from Mcomb. What did I say, Mcomb? Mcomb in Emmet County. On board were members of the rock group Lynyrd Skynyrd, their stage personnel, and cameramen. 6 members of the group were killed, including lead singer Ronnie Vincent, guitarist Steve Gaines, vocalist Cassie Gaines, and assistant road manager Dean Kilpatrick. The plane's pilot, Walter Willie McCreary, I think that's how you pronounce it, the co-pilot, William Gray, were also listed among the victims. At Southwestern, why they're going so slow? It makes me a little anxious. We've had people case other areas before and driving slow. So anyways, at Southwest, there were a total of 20 persons treated during the night due to severe head injuries and extensive broken bones. 8 of the passengers were taken to various hospitals in Jackson, Mississippi. Doctors and other medical personnel from the area reported immediately both to the scene of the accident and to the hospital. As one bystander observed, everyone seemed to go like clockwork. Everyone was more than willing to do anything and everything that needed to be done. As the evening progressed and the full impact of what happened befell those who involved, and it was quite obvious that there was never a question of anyone being too tired or too busy to go that extra mile. Southwest Medical Center is accustomed to providing acute medical care in times of crisis, but an overall feeling of the evening was not only providing medical assistance but supplying the passengers and their families with compassion as well. This month's edition of the Southwestern is dedicated to the hospital staff and many volunteers who provided such extraordinary care during a time of crisis, those on board the Convair 240, their family and friends. So, that was said, I want to move on to the paragraph. Nursing personnel were immediately notified by Virginia Lee RN, Director, Nursing Services. When called by Miss Jacobs at the junior high football game at approximately 7:50 p.m. Thursday, October 20th, 1977, I came to the hospital with Mr. Richmond and Miss Wimberly after pausing briefly to notify Dr. Stewart, who also at the game. We arrived at 7:55 p.m. and went immediately to the lobby where several physicians and nurses had already gathered and were setting up IV fluids, bandages, etc. Then Miss Jacobs and I went to the nursing service office, where we each took half of our alphabetical list of nursing personnel and called off-duty personnel in nursing areas to send extra floor personnel down to the lobby. We limited our calls to only those who did not live long distances away. As employees returned to the hospital, they were directed to stay in lobby and go to emergency room, to OR, RR, or the OB, and D area. Nursing areas were notified, including ICCU, which patients to discharge or transfer as the physicians gave the orders. Now, Patients tagged in triage area by Dolly Jacobs, RN, 311 supervisor. She goes on to write, I received a call from Sheriff's Department around 7:30 p.m. on October 20th, 1977, immediately notifying John Howell on AB1 to call all drivers, putting them on alert, and called Mr. Lugiel. I should have warned you. Some of these words, names I cannot pronounce. Is Logue. So I'm call him Mr. L. Administrator on his instructions paged attendants to get all litter carriers out of stairwell and placed in front of the hospital. Before attendants answered call or was received indirectly that plane had been located, ambulances on the way to the scene. Mr. L called again and asked that I call Miss Lee and Lee Hayden, instructing them to get two of his group back to the back to be in readiness. Called Miss Lee was not home, so called Bill Ballfield and was notified that she had just left. Miss Lee arrived immediately, and I then called Stutzman, who was already in medical records. Then I got a list of employees along with Miss Lee, began calling. I then went to admissions and gave them a list of rooms. Dr. Westbrook also, Dr. Westbrook asked for my worksheet and designated patients to be discharged. Dr. Mayer discharged also. I went to floor and relayed this to the patients, giving them instructions about medicines, and went to contact doctor, explained the necessity of discharge also. Designated rooms for ICU patients to be moved to and instructed nurses on floors to act promptly on getting rooms cleaned, gave Miss Candle list of rooms to be cleaned and also a list to admissions. I went to the triage area where I assisted in seeing patients were covered with blankets and help get them into triage areas where they were tagged. Volunteer ambulance from Centerville with nurse and EMT offered their service and readiness to transport to Jackson if needed. Relayed this to proper authorities after all patients assigned and transferred. I then helped clean up the triage area and emergency room. Okay. All three operating rooms were set up by Wanda Wimberly, RN, OR supervisor. I was notified at the junior high football game at approximately 7:50 p.m. Thursday, October 20th, 1977. I came to the hospital with Mr. Richmond and Miss Lee, who were also at the game. We arrived at the hospital at 7:55 p.m. After notification of the disaster, I returned to the hospital and immediately began calling surgery personnel to return to surgery. As the staff returned, I had them set up all three operating rooms with sterile linens and laparotomy. It's LAPROTOMY instruments. I then instructed the Central Service Department to bring up extra ringers and lactated ringers, IV fluids. I instructed the operating room crew to assemble, cover, and label the sterile instruments necessary for tracheotomy, vascular, and orthopedic repair work. I then allowed the sterile sets to be covered. The OR attendant went to the laundry to receive extra sheets, blankets, and surgical scrubs, cleaning for the OR and triage areas. I sent for plaster, rolls, and splints for orthopedic cases. After the disaster victims arrived, the OR crew, technicians, and attendants were utilized to run errands from central service to the emergency rooms. The OR nurses were utilized to assist with the victims in the emergency room. We assisted with insertion of chest tubes, suturing of lacerations, and transportation of patients. The operating room teams were then sent to surgery to be re-scrubbed and surgically prep the patients. The OR secretary helped to keep records and valuables of the victims. I floated between the emergency room, central sterile, and operating room, obtaining supplies and assisting surgeons with patients. At the completion of surgery, the patients were transferred to a recovery room. The technicians cleaned, rewrapped instruments trays, while the other nurses and myself assisted the recovery room personnel. We had assisted with the closure of lacerations and applications of splints to the fractures. I then sent the OR staff home and remained to assist with transporting patients to their rooms or their unit. Okay. Sorry, my eyes are just kind of bugging. I need my glasses. Anyways, moving on. Lab responded with full staff by Jake Sheffield, chief lab technician. All lab personnel was called to the lab, including all off-duty personnel. The lab was at the hospital until 3:30 a.m. Blood banks were called for blood stock. Blood banks included community blood and plasma, family blood assurance, and King's Daughters Hospital. Lab personnel was divided into two parts. A, 2 personnel to take care of all inpatients. B, 8 personnel to take care of all ER blood work, including H&H and type and cross-match blood specimens. A total of 20 units of blood was cross-matched and 7 units given in the disaster. Transmittance of information was essential by Terry Stutzman, Director of Medical Records. I was notified by Miss Jacobs about 7:45 p.m. Since I was already at the hospital along with 2 of my employees. I stationed them in the lobby and went to get the disaster trunk to get tags ready for use. I found it in the cast room. Well, he put air quotes cast room, and had it moved to the lobby. 2 other medical records employees were called back when it was assured that this was not a drill. Those employees responding were Kathy Holmes, Tommy, I want to say Green, it's Grenn, Mildred Cephas, Sephus, and Bridget Wilkinson. I helped with calling RNs and ward clerks from the floor because we were not sure how much time we had between the time of the call and the arrival of patients. Several ward clerks responded to help with tagging, and I instructed them on the procedure. When Mr. Green arrived, I left her. Okay, they put Mr. So Miss. I left her in charge of getting the tagging organized in the lobby, and went to be sure the people stationed in the ER understood the mission's procedure. From then on, I floated between the lobby and ER and the information center to be sure that the information was traveling according to schedule. When all the patients had been brought in, the job of accounting for everyone was started. Mr. Richmond, Mr. Roach, and I went through every patient, throughout the hospital, verifying the condition and identification of every patient. Those going to Jackson were identified. Lists were then prepared for distribution to the press, etc. The next day, I assisted Mr. L. and setting up interviews with the patients for the press. Okay. This is next little bit is done by Shirley Kendall, executive housekeeper. What her thing was about housekeeping how they prepared the rooms. She goes on and says, I called the hospital to check on something else and was informed that there had been a plane crash. When I arrived at the hospital approximately at 8:30 p.m., most everyone was here or were coming in. The lobby was well set up as a triage area. I went to my office and called in 2 housekeeping aides to clean discharged rooms as patients were being sent home. We had about 11 rooms to clean. I had about 3 men on duty that night. 2 were trainees, and they got broken in real well that night. I bet they did. Then I rounded up every blanket we had that night in place. The Army surplus wool blankets were a lifesaver. Brought towels and supplies up and hunted stretchers. Later that night, they cleaned up emergency rooms, surgery, lobbies, lobby hallways, etc., and carried dirty linens to the laundry. One man washed linens from 10:30 p.m. all the way through the night, and another came in at 3 a.m. and washed for 10 hours. I was very much impressed by the efficiency and cooperation of everyone involved, by the many volunteers and the excellent care given to the patients. Mr. L. Office served as information center by Anita Shepard, secretary to administrator. I was called at approximately 7:30 p.m. on Thursday night, October 20th, 1977, by the switchboard operator at Southwest Mississippi Regional Medical Center to report to the hospital administrator's office immediately to man the information desk and answer the telephone. I was told by the operator there had been a plane crash, and I arrived at the office at approximately 7:45. I wonder how close these people were to the hospital. They arrived there like 5-10 minutes later, 15 at the most. Anyway, she goes on to say, Mr. L's office was set up as headquarters for direction of the disaster plan, and I answered the telephone throughout the night and gave information as it became available. 2 other telephones were set up to give information, one in the office of the administrator and Thomas O.L., the L-O-G-U-E, and one in the office of the assistant administrator, William C. Hewitt. These phones were also answered throughout the night by Mr. Hewitt and Mr. Richmond, administrative assistant, Ms. Joyce L., director of personnel, also married to Mr. L., director of personnel, Reverend David A. Milliken, and Dr. J.E. Fowler. Information service provided up-to-date data by William C. Hewitt, assistant administrator. During the plane crash disaster, I instructed office personnel on calling physicians assigned volunteers to perform duties as they arrived. Next, the emergency and rescue vehicles were directed as to number of needed manpower in order to provide adequate service. The information service provided detailed, up-to-date data on incoming patients and related to this information to the proper authorities. Hospital personnel was assigned to I can't even say this word, please remember me, SPECIFIC. I know I'm horrible. I had to take speech, and apparently it did not help me when I was a kid. It was that certain functions based on need. Nourishments provided by dietary. This was written by the dietitian Julia Thomas. She says Thursday, October 20th at approximately 7:35 p.m., Waver Patterson and Ruby Priester were informed that the hospital was to be on emergency status. She began immediately to prepare coffee and soup. Food service manager and dietitian arrived at the hospital at 8 p.m. Dietary employees were instructed to prepare sandwiches, ice, juice, coffee, colas, and assorted condiments for two nourishment station, one at front lobby hallway and one at the north exit lobby. Daryl McGee, Magee, arrived at 8:30 p.m. and assisted the replenishment of nourishments. Dietary employees were dismissed from duty at 11:30 p.m. Sandwiches and nourishments were supplied to the operating room, doctor's lounge, nurse's lounge constantly until 2 a.m., at which time an adequate supply for nourishments were left. So Victoria Dixon, the director of social services, talked about the social services rendered emotional stability for these people. She goes on and writes, the social services department assisted in the triage area by tagging victims and assembling copies and reports on condition identification of patients for the information desk. It was necessary to locate families as soon as possible so social workers Debbie Broomfield and myself initiated initial contacts with the next of kin. Emotional assistance for both patients and their families were provided during the night, which I'm glad they did. Okay, cooperation of agencies were excellent by Renan, Renan, Richmond, administrative assistant. At approximately 7:45 p.m. on the evening of October 20th, 1977, I received a telephone call from Mr. Hewitt stating a report had been received that a plane was down with about 25 people involved. I was at a junior high ball game and was sitting with Dr. Carey, Dr. Stewart, Dr. Lowe, Miss Virginia Lee, Director of Nursing, and Miss Wimberly, OR Supervisor, and notified each. All reported to SMRMC at approximately 7:50 p.m. At SMRMC, I got two people working on PBX and two in admissions assisting by Miss Betty Hewitt, former supervisor. Terry Stutzman and I assigned Mary Stuther, Tommy Green, and Gloria Cotton to registering patients. Upon verification about 25 casualties, we discharged 5 patients to provide adequate rooms if needed. I called the National Guard CW3 Edward Smith, who in turn notified the state judge Judent ADJ UTANT General. I also notified the Mississippi Forestry. I won't call it forestry, but it's FRESTRY. Definitely was not in our vocabulary growing up in school. It's sad because I grew up in the 80s and the 90s. Commissioned to get their bulldozer to the site. Colonel or Colonial Traxler is TRAXLER. AG's office called to see what was needed, and I conferred with Dr. Aycock. It was felt 2 helicopters, 2.5-ton trucks, and about 10 EN with surface. This was granted by AB office. Between 8:30 and 8:45 p.m., the victims began to arrive. Medical personnel guided Dr. Aycock provided immediate assistance to each patient in the triage area before sending them to the emergency room or the operating room. The general public cooperation was excellent and remained across Marion Drive. The cooperation of the National Guard, civil defense, law enforcement agencies, and other were excellent. Several employees stayed through the night and continued to assist in the answering of phone calls. The purchasing agent Maggie talked about the emergency supplies. She says, I was called before 8 p.m. At first, I thought it was a mock disaster. Robert Martin, Edward McGee, my husband, and Daryl McGee, my son, reported to the hospital immediately. Edward and Daryl assisted in running supplies to the floors, while Robert and I located supplies called in from Central Supply. I called various laboratory representatives and had them on standby to bring some extra supplies if needed. The supplies were monitored throughout the night in order to replenish anything that was needed during the disaster. So Gwen Turner, LPN, her little paragraph too was called all recovery room was called back. She says, we first set up the emergency surgery and recovery room. Extra supplies, oxygen, and sections were brought in case of more than 4 patients in recovery. We helped get supplies for other parts of the hospital and helped transport patients to x-rays. Next, we helped to clean up sutures patients. I don't always say suture patients and OB, and assisted taking blood pressure on patients on arrival. We had 3 surgeries, and the recovery room was set up for intensive post-op care. There were also suturing, debridements, and application of casts in every room. Those that attended were J. McDonald, RN, C. Hoyt, LPN, E. Feiner, LPNM, Young Tech, and O. Case Tech. All 5, and I'll call them anesthesiologists because that's how I can pronounce them. They were called by Lee Hayden, CRNA. All 5 were called in by me and assigned to the following locations: front lobby, emergency room, and OR. In front lobby, IV stands were obtained, emergency drugs were set, and O2 with ventilating systems were obtained. Also, the above equipment was set up in ER. Mike Shaw, Mary, don't know how to pronounce her last name, is Kalusche, and Ken Smith were up one OR room to handle major traumas. Leslie Singleton set up equipment in the emergency room. Once most of the patients were in the hospital, 2 of the anesthesists, I can't pronounce the names of what they do, remained in the OR. 3 of them circulated in the ER rooms and front lobby. Later, I, Lee Hayden, accompanied patients on helicopter evac to University Medical Center in Jackson. Pharmacy dispensed medications. Betty Morgan, chief pharmacist. During the disaster on October 20th, the chief pharmacist was contacted and reported to the hospital immediately. The pharmacy remained on duty until 1 p.m., dispensing medications for individual patients and filling and delivering stock supplies and narcotics. Pharmacy supplies were adequate and replacement orders were completed Friday. Patients loaded on cots and stretchers by Department Head Maintenance, Milton Boyle. I received a telephone call from the hospital saying I was needed. Mike and I got to the hospital within 5 minutes. After learning what had happened, I sent all available EMTs to the scene with supplies. These men included Mike Boyd, B-O-Y-D, Claude Reeves, Percy Pittman. Next, I made a telephone call to Hattiesburg, Mississippi, and talked to Rescue 7 helicopter service. Then I stayed on radio talking with ambulance drivers to see what we could expect and set up for, as they would tell me that they had some patients loaded and ready to ride. I would relay this information to Dr. Acott. I helped with stretchers and cots, unloading patients from trucks and ambulances, loading patients on helicopters, etc. FD Buck Bartle gave this account of the night's activities. After receiving word of the airplane crash, I responded immediately to the hospital. When I arrived at the hospital, I began helping secure stretchers and cots and keeping the area free of cars and people. Then I remained at my assigned post waiting further instructions. Okay. Oh, like it's just mosquitoes coming out. um, so 2 more paragraphs on this page, and the last page, a list of those treated at the Southwest Regional Medical Center. So emergency call came in from Florida by Peggy Bullock, 7-3 supervisor. At 9 p.m., my daughter called me from Pensacola, Florida, 6 hours away from me, to tell me about the disaster. I immediately dressed and arrived at the hospital at 9:30 p.m. There were 2 patients arriving by pickup truck as I entered the emergency room. 2 patients were already being treated in the emergency room at the time. Chest tubes were ordered, and I sent for S. Crane to assist in the emergency room. I secured supplies as requested from the emergency room, then reported to Miss Lee in the triage area room. For assignment, we stood by arrival of victims, readying IV and asserting needed supplies were available. When the patients began arriving, I assisted in taking vital signs, starting IVs, and transporting patients to X-ray and labor and delivery. Then I assisted as needed in any way possible until transfers completed and patients to rooms. Respiratory equipment promptly utilized by Alan Hayslip, Chief Respiratory Therapist. I was called to report to the hospital at 7:45 p.m. I arrived by 7:50 p.m., talked with the technician on duty, and found out this was a real disaster. I instructed Georgia Robertson to call James Greer back. I started checking to make sure the respiratory equipment was available as O2 cylinders, EKG machines, set up syringes for blood gases, calibrate blood gas machine, and check to make sure the imbue bags in the lobby in case they were needed. After patients started arriving, we started moving patients, getting supplies, moved patients to X-ray to emergency room, etc. We drew blood gases in emergency room. Technicians stayed with the patients in emergency room. We helped patients' families try to locate members of their families. And at the bottom they put, at Southwest Regional Medical Center, we understand the importance of teamwork. That's why we know it's the united effort that gets the job done. Many thanks to all who donated their time, money into the United Givers campaign. Through us, it's working. Okay, this is the list of those that were treated at the Southwest the Regional Medical Center. Clayton Johnson, Kenneth Peden, P-E-D-N-E, James, Bracey, B-R-A-S-E, Leon Wilkinson, Ron Eckerman, Kevin Ellison, Gene Odom, Bill Powell, Mark Frank, Don Kretschwarn, Gary, they put Rassington, but I think it's Rossington, from what I've seen on other documents I've seen. Joe Osborne, Craig Reed, Steve Lawler, Leslie Hawkins, Mark Howard, Bill Sykes, and Collins Allen. So, last page. X-ray rooms were ready. By Ben Hutton, Ben Hunt, Chief X-ray Technologist. As Chief Technologist, I was notified by the technician on call and told that a plane crash with 25 persons on board. I immediately came to the hospital and called the entire technician staff and X-ray asides. Responding were technicians Terry Brady, Wendell Johnston, Lori Serpas, Serpas, and Rick McGregor. Aides were Bessie Welch and Carolyn Haygood. While waiting for everyone to revive, the X-ray rooms were prepared for use, film checked, and the entire department in readiness. As soon as everyone arrived and were stationed two technicians in each room, aides in dark room to run the film through the processor. I reported to Assistant Administrator Bill Hewitt and reported that my department was ready. Also, I called Dr. Sandra Roden, radiologist in Jackson, and asked her to come in. As soon as the patients started arriving, both X-ray rooms were utilized to speed the flow of patients through the department. The patients moved fast through the department, and no problems were encountered. I want to say thank you to everyone that went in and worked and helped out and responded, even when they thought it was just in, what do you call it, the, not a scam, but, you know, even when they thought it was just something planned to help them to, like, get organized, or they want to call it. So the last part is from Mike Kinnaman, my uncle. Yes, he is related. Um, so this is what he was said about him, from him. Immediately following the announcement of the plane crash, Lacey Vincent, leader Ronnie Vincent's father, requested that Mike Kinnaman be sent to Mcomb to coordinate the business of the rock group. An associate of the organization said that Kinnaman had been both a colleague and a best friend to this group from the very beginning. He is here to see to all their needs, both personal and financial. During a recent interview, Kinnaman said, "It is no way I can fully express the deep appreciation that is felt by myself and everyone involved with the Skynyrd organization towards Southwest Hospital. Everyone has been so kind to us. We really love the people at SMRMC and Mcomb." He also asked that a special thanks be extended to Mr. Tom L., Mr. Bill Hewitt, and Mr. Richmond for all the cooperation he has received from them in particular. We will never forget the fantastic treatment we are getting, said Kinnaman. It is the best I've ever seen. Now, like, he developed PTSD from having, he had to go to the actual crash site, identify some of the bodies. I think they had already got some, but he had to get all their stuff. He had to go to the hospital and see all of them. He had to see all the bodies, and it really bothered him, like, big time. And he stayed there for a while, checked on everybody, and although him and Gene Odom didn't get along, he went to his hospital room and checked on him too. Now, Gene claims he was the one that checked on everybody. Maybe when he was able to get up and walk around, he visited everybody, but this says otherwise. But he had to do a lot. He had to rent a van and cart, one of those things that goes behind a car, a little trailer with all their stuff. And oh my gosh, like, you wouldn't believe. And he's had to take medicine to even sleep. It makes him like sleep. That talking to sleep though. I had plenty of funny conversations with him while he was asleep. he used to hang around them. He would help manage them. Um, he would take care of the financial part, like, because in his own words, he said if it was left in their hands, they would use it for drugs and other things, and then claim, "Oh, I'm hungry. I need money for food. I need money for food." And he caught on to stuff, and he's like, "No, I won't hand the money. If y'all need food, I'll hand you the vouchers or whatever is needed. I want to make sure you go sit down and go eat." you know. And it get to where they would bother him all throughout the night, go to his room, and when they were in hotels, and he would finally get to the point where he would go in, sign them all in, um, and he would put his room under a different name, so they wouldn't know what room he was in, so he can go get some sleep. He talked about when he was married to my cousin Michelle's mom. Well, she had a boy from a previous relationship. His name happened to be Michael too, and he adopted him, and that was a bad situation there. Eventually became a bad situation there where they ended up divorced, and the kids weren't able to see him for years. They kind of seen some things now, and even the boy, even Michael's like, I see that you tried to help us. We're like the best dad we had, and even though you're not my real dad, and he's like, appreciate everything that you did do and all that. But there was so much stuff I wish I could show y'all and do. Under some things he don't want outright coming out outright right now. Things that he's had from the crash, things he's had somebody turn into jewelry, little metal pieces. One day I would like to go through all that stuff and do a video. He kind of want to wait till he's dead and gone for a lot of this stuff to be released. It would be cool to have like a museum, another kind of museum with stuff like y'all would not have ever seen before. I wasn't even sure if I should do this video or not, but I felt in my spirit like it'd be a good time to at least tell y'all about this. And it's information I don't think a lot of people know about, except for the families, close friends. So I'm sorry for my reading is not always the best as far as speaking. I do have to get out of my comfort zone, and there's why do people have weird names? Because it makes it so hard to pronounce. My brain don't want to compute. I say don't want to, but I've had too many head injuries from work and all that, so it's hard to get things out, my words and all, and to really think, I say think, but it's hard to describe, but I've had several concussions, so my brain is not what it used to be. I'm a little bit slower getting stuff come up. I can't get my words out. I struggle to get my words out, so y'all please pray for me because I need it with my brain. So that is it. Thank you for listening to me because y'all didn't have to. Thank you for subscribing. Any likes, views, whatever you do. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Y'all have a good night, good day, morning, whenever you're viewing this video. I do appreciate my uncle. I mean, he's completely bald-headed now, but I know after this whole thing happened, and he kind of stayed away from music for a while. He was with the circus for a while too, and that's a whole nother story. They say he ran away 3 times as a teenager. I know he said one thing. He told me he missed doing. He's like, I love the music business, but I would never do that again. He's like, what I would redo if I had ever had the chance to go back and redo something, would be the circus. So, I mean, he was a clown anyways. I mean, literally, figuratively. Um, but he's a character. I see why a lot of people like him in a lot of ways. But yeah, he was a clown. He did the Chappies thing, the high wire, the was it the walking Walendas or flying Walendas, or how do you say their names? My mom got to meet them. She said they're some broccoli eating fools. They love broccoli and butter. That's all she remembers them eating. She had dinner with them one time with Uncle Michael, and so he got popular with the circus people, and where they lived off of 8th and Main, and right there off of Talleyrand, to about a walk or two away from them, was the trains come through, and that's where the trains, Barnum and Bailey's train would stop at, and so he would hitch a ride to Sarasota and their costume department. They didn't know he was there until they got there and was cleaning stuff out and changing stuff up. But he formed relationships with them and friendships. And anytime they were there, it was like they had their own little mini circus at their house. They had, well, we can't call them midgets now, but back then that's what they had at their house. The little people in the front yards, the jugglers, the clowns, and all that. They would come and eat at their house when they were kids. So first time he ran away, he was 13, and oh my gosh, I know my grandma was in hysterics. Couldn't find him. Thought something bad happened to him. Couldn't find him anywhere. He wasn't at any of their friends' house. They were looking for him, and they get a call. Hey, ma'am, are you looking for? They called him Baldy, the guy that called, and we're like, Miss Kinnaman, are you missing a son? She's like, oh my gosh, yes, is he? Where is that? Is he okay? And she just questioned him. He was like, yeah, it's okay. He's with us. He's jumped the train. He's in Sarasota. We'll send him as soon as we can. At that time it was nighttime, so they were like, we'll send him the next day or two, and we'll make sure he's fed and all and taken care of while he's with us. So the second time he ran away, I think he ran away. And the third time, they're like, you might as well. No, I think the second time they said, if he keeps running away, we'll keep him. And the third time they were like, it's the same person that called every time, Baldy, and he's like, you might as well just let him stay and let him see what it's like. We'll put him to work, and with the hard work and stuff, he'd probably just like, oh no, I don't want to do this. He ended up staying, and he did through a lot of stuff. And Kodiak took a picture of him in his clown costume with the flower, handing it to a girl, and the elephant behind him. And it was on the cover, I think, their magazine or something like that. And I came across that magazine because he ended up with a copy of it somehow. I don't know if it's something they sent him or he found it in a store. I'm trying to remember the story. So I'm definitely having to interview my own uncle again and just like get some stories, write those things down. And they're important for family history too. So I've been doing a lot of family history. I wrote a little bit of things about him, like how he ran away to the circus and all that. But not so much of the bands he dealt with. I don't know if y'all knew Bear Strait. He's done them. He was their manager for the longest time. Fortunately, the band broke up. Differences of it was mainly because of one of the female singers. And like I said, all this is different stories. I'm gonna have to do another video just about him. And he's one of those that likes to pull pranks. So he pulled pranks on the group he managed in Nashville, and in the group and the circus. So I'll see you guys later. I'm sorry this is a long one. I hope y'all at least somewhat enjoyed it. See you guys later. Bye. Okay, you guys. This will only take a minute. I want to add this to the video. I know this has to be true. This is what my uncle has said, and due to a recent video. By the way, I love watching Days with the Jordan on the line. I'm not trying to down you any, but I know my uncle was saying that the family really didn't like for people to, especially certain types of fans, to know where Ronnie Van Zant was buried at. They had to move him from that Orange Park one cemetery. Well, it's technically in Orange Park, but it's called Jacksonville Memorial Gardens or something like that. And moved him over to the west side, and he's done a video, Days with Jordan with Gene Odom. Well, he's been, I don't know, Ronnie's been moved from one spot to another spot, and that's when they did a video. And I found out last 4th of July they had I'm assuming it's the family had moved his body again after that video. I'm not saying what cemetery or where it's at. I have friends of mine that are huge fans, but they go at least once or twice to visit the grave, and they couldn't even find the grave. And they finally found it, took a picture. They won't tell anybody where it's at. They're one of those people that, I think they heard the same thing. I think it's for safety issues. They don't want people to come find out where he is and try to dig him up, steal more stuff. The family suffered enough over the years, and it costs thousands of dollars to move the person each time, and I had to buy a whole new plot and everything. So I would say please be respectful for the Van Zants and for the rest of their family. Even the coach that the band's named after, they switched letterings around and stuff to make it their own, but he's buried out in the same cemetery. And I say just be careful with even that. Be respectful to the family and to the dead. Because they shouldn't have to keep moving his body around for stuff like that. And it's just, I think they're trying to be extra careful, which I understand completely, wholeheartedly. So when I found out last July 2023 that he had been moved again, it made sense to what my uncle had told me. He stays in contact with some of the people still, even from that family. So I would have to say I would believe what he says on that part. So if you want to come down and visit, I said be careful with that part. I don't want them to have to move him again. So please be respectful of family wishes. They hadn't come out right and said anything on news or anything like that that I'm aware of. Just going by what my uncle is saying, that who knows the people. So, and some of them I know one of the backup singers that did survive used to come to my mom's job all the time. They talked a little bit, some, and some of the band does have shopped where my mom worked at before she left, and had to stay away from the money and all that and germs during the COVID and her having cancer at the time. And she had to get a job where she can sit down some, because her legs and feet would swell, the lipedema or whatever. So yeah, I just want to add that in.